Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. It's November 20th, 2023. Great to be with all of you today. Apologize for running a little bit late here this morning. My name is Bob Lang, and I run explosiveoptions.net, along with an amazing chat room with some amazing, wonderful people. Wishing all of you an early Thanksgiving. Just a reminder, we usually bring the daily bites to you on Monday and Thursday. So this Thursday, obviously, with the holiday coming up, there's going to be no daily bites for the rest of the week. We'll be back on Monday, the 27th. So if you're in the chat room, you'll get a lot of stuff from me for the rest of the week. I will be here today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And Friday, of course, is a short trading day. We'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. The markets are open from 9:30 Eastern until about 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Eastern time, and then they're closed for the rest of the weekend. So let's talk about the markets here right now. So currently, right now, we see the futures, which were up a little bit earlier this morning. Early this morning, fell back quite a bit after Europe opened, and kind of been meandering around here. We see the S&P futures are up about 1 point here, the NASDAQ up about 11, and the Dow down about the same amount, 11 points. Strong week last week, of course, right? We had a really big day on Tuesday, which was the following the release of the October CPI number. The markets really came in strong, didn't finish on their highs of the day, but did follow through a couple of days later. And now we find the S&P 500 at 45.14. It's been a long road to get back to 4,500. It'll be an even longer road to get back to 4,600, which was the high from 2023 earlier in the year. So all-time highs. A lot of people are looking at that, roughly 4,800. So we're talking about 7 to 8% away on the S&P 500 from an all-time high. I don't know if we're going to get to that in 2023. Certainly, if we see a shift in Fed policy that is much more aggressive, we could certainly get to that point. Now, don't forget, a shift in Fed policy, which would be from hawkish to, say, neutral, or maybe just less hawkish. I don't suspect it'll be dovish right away. We could certainly get dovish on the policy if the economy starts to get weaker and if inflation continues to decline as it has for the past couple of months. So the interesting thing is about the inflation here, and this is the way I look at it. In fact, I was just talking with my son about this last night. One data point is not all that important, not all that relevant. And I know the markets took off last Tuesday based on the one data point where the S&P 500 went up almost 2% on the CPI number that was came in just about flat on the headline and showed a little bit more weakness in the core CPI, right? But we didn't get exactly the same numbers on Wednesday with the PPI. Markets did go up a little bit, but not so much, and we did have a negative number on the headline, minus 0.5%. So I've been saying for quite a while that if the markets were going to get a little bit more fuel and see that the Fed becomes a little bit more dovish or a little bit less hawkish, you'd need to see negative readings in the CPI. So we haven't had that yet. We had a flat reading in October. Now we're starting to see oil prices starting to come up again. We see crude oil is back up to 77.80. It went up, had a strong day on Friday, almost 5% on Friday, and it's following through today. So what does that mean? That tells us that gasoline prices are probably going to be heading up if they haven't already gone up already, and we're going to see a little bit more pressure on prices. And don't forget, we have Black Friday coming up on this week, and that's just after Thanksgiving, and that is the start of the big shopping season for the holidays. When I was in retail, they used to call this the Super Bowl of retail. Why do they call it Black Friday? It's simply because that is the one day that retailers finally go into the black. They've been in the red up until the day after Thanksgiving. They finally do enough sales to go into the black and go positive in that particular year. And then hopefully, they do a lot more sales into the end of the year and into January and so forth. Then it cycles through. So we do have again Black Friday. Retailers we're going to be paying attention to that very very closely. Retail sales last week came in a little bit negative, but a little bit better than expected. We did see good positive results from Target, and they were encouraged about their future here. We just saw some positive numbers from Walmart, but they did take their numbers down a little bit more of conservative guidance. Along the way, we saw some good numbers from Home Depot, Williams Sonoma. These are names that we had in the chat room. We had a couple of them in the EO service as well too. Which, by the way, unbelievable week we had. 11.5% strong week. We're up 15.5% for the year, just nipping on the heels of the S&P 500. So. So we're looking at a week that when we have some news that's going to carry markets. And what is the big news item that's coming out this week and before Thanksgiving? That would be tomorrow evening, and that would be the earnings report from big chip maker NVIDIA. Right, a lot of people are looking at NVIDIA to make a big, huge maybe announcement on AI chips and so forth, and maybe something positive. The stock has really made a couple of big moves in the last couple of quarters. I don't think that this is the quarter where you're going to see the stock move 15-20% again like it did 2 quarters ago. I could be wrong, but I think that this is an overloved stock, and it has been for a while. The stock is up huge for 2023, but at some point in time, that the news that is released is already priced into the stock, and I think that this stock is reflecting earnings out probably into 2025 or 2026. So that's how the stock market works. They discount earnings, future earnings. So I think that this is one of those names where if you're playing it from the long side, you got to be careful. You got to have some protection. Play it small. I'll be watching it tomorrow for an opportunity. I don't have any positions on NVIDIA right now. I know some people in the chat room have some smaller positions and have sold some puts or maybe have some stock, so forth. So we'll be watching this one for an opportunity. It's really not on my radar screen tomorrow, but always have to take a look at it. And if there's some collateral moves, meaning some other stocks like AMD or Intel that are going to move off of the NVIDIA news, we have to pay attention to that. So let's take a look at the oscillators here for a moment here. I've got Boeing up here on the chart, but take a look at the 2 bottom panes here, please. We have the McClellan oscillator for the NASDAQ, which is at 218, pretty overbought right now. We have the New York Stock Exchange McClellan oscillator at the bottom over here, 176 positive. That's also pretty well overbought. It's not to one of those extreme levels. We usually see about 250 to 300 on the NASDAQ when we get extreme, which we got up there back in November. We had well over 300, and then we had a nasty correction for a couple of days. New York Stock Exchange actually got up to 300. When they get up to 200 to 250, it's usually getting up there on fumes, and the rally is probably about ready to peter out. So pay attention to that. That's what happened in the early part of November. Of course, we pulled down for about 4 or 5 days modestly, and we roared right back last week. So if we get up a little bit higher on this oscillator, you might want to use that move and to use a move on the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 to start peeling back, scaling back on some of your positions, especially some of your risk, and possibly even add some more some insurance, which would be some index put options. All right, they're pretty cheap right now with the VIX down at 14%. What am I looking at this week? So let's take a look here. Let me show you this chart over here. Okay, it's the S&P 500. So we do have a couple of interesting earnings names out coming this week that I'm going to be paying attention to. Maybe not necessarily getting into them before earnings, but Deere, of course, is always on my radar screen. DE is the symbol there coming up right now, and it's pulled back quite a bit from the July highs, making looks like it probably made a stand at about 360. We'll see what happens there. They report earnings on Wednesday morning. We also have, again, the aforementioned NVIDIA, but then one stock that has my attention here, which is a pretty decent looking chart, is Autodesk, ADSK. They report their earnings after the close on Tuesday. It's always a wild card with this one. And you can see back in August, look what happened here. It popped up, pulled right back down, and then the next day right back up again. So, if you can stomach that ride, it's a roller coaster session with that name. Good luck with that one. So go ahead to have fun, and buy some calls and buy some puts, and we'll see where the ball drops. It's probably leaning towards a much more positive move this time around. But let's see what happens. I think above 220, 225, stock's got some room to run. I've got Lowe's also on my radar screen. As you know, Home Depot came out with earnings last week, and they weren't great, but they weren't horrible. And when a stock produces less than feared earnings, the stock market pretty much goes with it and says, all right, well, breathing a sigh of relief, and we'll go ahead and give them a pass this time around. You can see the chart of Home Depot when it had that big move up last Tuesday. Followed through Wednesday, and it's right underneath this 100-day moving average over here, let's call it about 310, 311. If you can break through that, you can get some room up, going back to those old highs back here in August and September. But first things first, got to break through that ceiling. Maybe the Lowe's earnings report tomorrow morning will help in that regard. All right, it's 9 o'clock right now, everyone. I want to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving, and I appreciate all of you. I'm very thankful for all of you listening in to my daily bites usually twice a week, not this week, of course, and having a great time and listening to me, learning a little bit about markets. We've had a very interesting year. Obviously, we started off positively. We dipped a bit, and we're trying to come back and make some positives. Bullish moves into the end of the year. NASDAQ has been strong, obviously being carried by those magnificent 7 names like NVIDIA and Microsoft, Google, Apple, and so forth. So there's still some good opportunities here in this market. And as we see monetary policy unfold and possibly change in 2024, there's going to be even more opportunities coming up. So I want you guys to stick with it. We're happy with our results. We're happy to have you join us in the chat room or in the service, the EO service. Come to explosiveoptions.net, see what we're all about. And wishing you guys all again a very happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you guys all next Monday. Take care, everyone. Bye.